Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. One second, I'm having this issue. There we go. Sorry about that. Start again. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here today. Welcome to our webinar, Strengthening Cyber Sovereignty and Security in Tribal Communities. My name is Kaylee Kuhn from TribalHub, and I am thrilled to be here today with the team from CSOI. We're going to get started in just a second, but while we are waiting, if you wouldn't mind to pop in the chat and let us all know where you are joining from today. Michelle and I are here in our Gaylord office where it is a crisp 7 degrees and it has been very snowy. We got some joiners from Arizona. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to start sharing my screen and get started with the slides today. We are going to go ahead. Special thanks to our webinar partners, CSOI, Division of Impress Technology. Our presenters are Stephen Lemons and Robert Armstrong. You will learn more about them soon. This webinar session will be recorded and you'll be able to view the recording anytime at our TribalHub website. You'll also receive an email with a link to this webinar, so feel free to share that with anyone on your team that couldn't make it today. And here is a quick look at some of the learning objectives that we'll learn from this webinar. Please be sure to use the chat or Q&A if you have any questions, and we'll make sure to get those answered today. And for our fourth and final slide, this is a reminder about our upcoming Cybersecurity Summit taking place in February, Florida. So if you have any questions regarding that, please refer to our website at tribalhub.com. And with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Stephen.
Thank you, Kaylee. Greatly appreciated.
Yeah, let me stop sharing my screen real quick.
As Kaylee said, thank you everyone for joining this morning. We appreciate your time, or good morning and good afternoon. We know your time is valuable, so we do greatly appreciate you taking the time to sit in with us and view this and listen to the CSOI and how we believe we can strengthen the cyber sovereignty and security within your organizations and the tribes. So just from this first slide, we're going to just move right along. On the second piece, we always get into what CSOI is. And as stated, I'm Stephen Lemons, Principal Solutions Architect for CSOI, or Cybersecurity Operations Infrastructure. And as that slide played out, this is where we always start the conversations to really define what CSOI is and what advantages it brings to your organization as a whole. As network administrators, longtime network administrators and troubleshooting and cybersecurity personnel, we're very familiar with the typical OSI model that is presented on the left-hand side of the screen. And this is where we always compare the architectures of pre-CSOI and then post-CSOI and what the CSOI solution is bringing to bear within your organization once implemented. And we've all had to deal with the Band-Aids and the firewalls and the ACLs and any buzzword that comes along lately for network security, or a perimeter firewall, or some kind of next generation monitoring capability that is band-aiding that 35-year-old OSI model. Once CSOI is implemented within an organization, what is very beneficial, or a key point to remember, is we then shim that OSI model, and this is where we refer to this red piece right here, between the TCP UDP and the IPv and IPv6 sessions. And when we shim that organization or your network infrastructure, we are now bringing two pieces to bear that have really was not even a consideration when the original OSI model was created. And those two pieces that we bring are authentication and authorization. And what's very keen to keep in mind on this is the authentication piece means any device, once the CSOI solution is deployed, if it attempts to communicate or participate in speaking to any other protected device within your organization, it must possess a unique cryptographically signed identity that is completely different than just that typical IPv4 or IPv6 address that all devices receive when they get onto your network space. But that's only one piece of it. Remember that second piece that when we bring that OSI 3.5 shim into bear is that authorization. Well, now just because a device has that unique cryptographically signed identity, is it a member of policy to access those other devices, those other protected devices within your organization? And this is where CSOI really streamlines this process and makes it very simple to deploy in a matter of minutes, if not hours. And then as you get into that, you're not dealing with overcomplicated ACLs. And it's a very simple, either microsegmentation one-to-one or pools of segmentation on those devices that can access other protected devices, as well as what devices can actually reach past your perimeter to get access to, say, the greater internet, update servers, things of that nature. And when we still compare the architectures and we discuss CSOI implementation, we always like to show this simple 1, 2, 3-step diagram. And the reason we show this is because the power of CSOI is it is a true software-defined networking solution, meaning whatever your existing infrastructure is, which is at the top, known as the underlay. And here we have a few things shown that we use in real time here at CSOI. We have Azure over on the west, we've got Google Cloud here in central, and we've got AWS over on the east. So that is our underlay, different production systems, different R&D environments, different things that we need to segment access to that normally you would leverage a VPN concentrator or a VPN agent that someone would connect and get an IP in a greater pool of IPs. Once CSOI is implemented and we get to step 2, we're now deploying that red diamond. And I like to reference this in every time discussing CSOI because it's easier to bring your mind back to the narrative as we discuss the CSOI implementation, the policies that you create, and then the onboarding of those devices that need that protected access or access to those protected devices. So once CSOI is implemented, we've got that red diamond, that is essentially nothing more than an identity-defined networking fabric. This is where those two pieces that we talked about when we shim the OSI model with our 3.5 shim, this is bringing that authentication and authorization piece to bear. Meaning, does any device attempting to speak to another protected device have a unique cryptographically signed identity that is separate from their IP address? And if they do have that signed identity, do they have policy of trust to access another protected device within your organization? And this is where step 3 comes in. We create these overlay policies of trust between those selected devices. And you'll see some of these red locks, and as we carry through this presentation, you'll see those red locks deployed. And those red locks are nothing more than CSOI policy enforcement gateways. They can either be virtual or physical, and we cover the whole spectrum. And we really rely on that physical part for, we know every organization has legacy operating systems. They've hit end of life. You're not going to get a security update. You're not getting any kind of patching. And this is where we give you that ability to put a very small form factor appliance in front of those legacy systems, bringing this next level of cybersecurity enforcement to bear within your organization. So this is where we like to show just the current network. This is a real rough diagram. We're looking at a manufacturing plant. We've got data centers, HMI controllers. We've got different configuration points. And you're dealing with your supply chain partners and vendors, especially from a third-party HVAC system, where if you need to let some third-party engineer have remote access into your environment to either troubleshoot, triage, and try to apply updates to those devices that are failing or causing those headaches and keeping you up at night. We're very aware of the hundreds of devices, hundreds of rules. They're difficult to translate those into IP details or ACLs that are tracking all of those IPs. And once again, IPs are just IPs. It's just like segmentation through VLAN. It's great up front, but if you don't have the mechanisms in place to monitor VLAN hopping, or it's just a crapshoot at that point, if an adversary can get into your network and figure out what your IP schema is for each segment, then I'm off to the races. Once I can get an IP, I can figure out your gateway, I can figure out what VLAN you've defined for those segments, and I can just fine tune whatever access point or endpoint that I've deployed to start doing that east, west, and north, south exfils. Incompatibility between different networks, we hear that loud and clear. CSOI is designed to be implemented with ease of administration, ease of deployment. In each one of these segments, we then allow you to deploy either physically or virtually. And this is where we get into the CSOI zero trust networking architecture, the network you want. And we've all heard this zero trust mandate coming down. And once CSOI is deployed in those different segments of your organization, and you can see these red locks deployed in front of these different scenarios, the different deployments. And then above what you're used to have as your command and control is our command and control called a conductor. This is a central piece of software, or a single dashboard, if you will, that is now monitoring all of these policy enforcement points, or CSOI gateways, if you will, and those agents, and when and where and how they're going to be able to connect to one another, and where they need to stretch their communications to get that line of sight access or open up that tunnel of access to those protected devices. Once CSOI is deployed within your organization and you start pursuing the microsegmentation and secure remote access, we reduce the attack surface by 95%, because once the CSOI solution is deployed, those adversaries that are normally inside your organization, or even from your own internal penetration testing test, your VAPTs, your network admins that are doing their quarterly reviews and scanning of the environments, anything that's going to be sitting behind a CSOI policy enforcement point or gateway, those devices are protected, which means the typical scanning of an environment and you run into a firewall, well, that firewall is still answering all of that traffic you're throwing at it. It's going to say, oh yeah, I answer on these, and these are the ports I'm responding to, and this is the current fingerprint of what operating system I'm running. It's giving your adversary just a playbook on what your environment is configured as and what they need to go look up from a CVE perspective to gain the footprint right into your organization. We do not do that. CSOI just drops all that traffic. If we don't have those two pieces, as we stated back on that red diamond when we shim that OSI model, the authentication and authorization, which means any traffic coming across, if they don't first have that unique cryptographically signed identity that we have provided a device at time of onboarding, we're not talking to you. We're not going to play this game of we're going to answer, we're going to let you fingerprint, we're going to give you all this information. We're just going to go, nope, sorry, we're not talking to you, move along. 95% of the adversaries that are out there, or when they start looking through networks, when they start running up to something that they can't fingerprint, it's not answering their traffic, I can't identify any open ports, that's a hard sell. It may be interesting from a hacker perspective, but from my perspective of trying to get an easy foothold or an easy open door into your organization, that's not giving me any information to design a more robust playbook to go after those crown jewels in your organization. We have found through CSOI we're 70% less expensive than the mandate of the majority of the firewalls, the ACLs, and the other things that you're going to have to configure in your organization to protect, as well as 90% faster to deploy. And now let's get into how does CSOI simplify the secure remote access for those protected assets within your organization? Well, through the enforced role-based and explicit access with continuous identity verification, we can ensure that when you deploy, just like any VPN agent, you're going to deploy a CSOI agent for those third-party contractors, remote employees, anyone needing that remote access into your organization and access to those most protected assets of your organization. That agent must continuously provide authentication and verify who they are through that unique cryptographically signed identity. And then the authorization is that remote agent is part of a policy of access strictly to that one protected asset, not an IP in a greater pool of VPN remote access, to where once that agent connects, they now receive that IP and they're going to scan that same network class or network subnet of that IP that is virtual, protecting that network space, saying, oh, I see that there's 20 or 30 other remote employees on. Let's see what other vectors I can manipulate, move, and get in front of. No, this is a one-to-one relation, or we open it up and we almost do a hub and spoke to where it allows you to find that access, that micro-segmentation with 100% certainty. Users and vendors can view only the secure devices they're authorized to see. This is very beneficial from the CSOI. We do this all the time to any third-party developers that we need. We can remotely deploy the agent to them. We give them access solely to the development box that they are generating or working on that code for. So we know 100% certainty, no other pieces within the CSOI infrastructure or production environment are going to be able to be seen, fingerprinted, or even attempt to access by those remote third parties. And this is where we come into that authorization piece and our overlay policies of trust. These access policies follow the user and device, that unique cryptographically signed identity assigned to that person's device at time of onboarding. It doesn't follow the IP, it doesn't follow where they're from. So they could take that agent and, as stated, have single agent have access to multiple protected or segmented CSOI protected environments within your organization. Our agent allows the creation of multiple profiles. Those profiles can be applicable to each segmented portion of your organization, meaning if I have access to the R&D, there's no way I'm going to get in access to a separate conductor managed finance or marketing side of the house. The last piece is, how does CSOI enforce that data sovereignty? We've heard the concerns. Everybody is concerned about anything you implement. Well, they want to filter everything to a cloud-based dashboard, or they want to go through the cloud, or have everything offload from your on-prem control to those cloud resources that you do not maintain restrictive controls and too much oversight in those cloud environments. Through the use of segmentation and microsegmentation, we can keep that sensitive data of your organization on-prem or within those approved zones that you have CSOI protecting. We can also do policy-based access to ensure only those authorized user devices are interacting with that most sensitive data. Because as we've spoken about those CSOI policy enforcement points or gateways, once we put those in front of any of those assets of your organization that require that extra level of security and protection, we're now following that overlay policy of trust of only those additional devices with that authenticated, unique cryptographically signed identity is going to be able to access and go from there. And the solution can be on-prem only. We've heard a lot of concern about different customers to where they're like, this is great, but again, your command and control is in the cloud. So we give you the ability to host this yourself. The command and control piece can be hosted on site. All of the policy enforcement point gateways can be hosted on site, virtually and physically. So you can now define policies of all of that information or those protected assets, what they can reach out to, what they can't reach out to, and who they can interact with. And we do have a nice little feature called a bypass gateway that you can actually set around tagging and calendar timed intervals of when certain devices are allowed to speak out or reach past your software defined perimeter to gain access to either a manufacturer's update server or any other entity that may need to just blip that data out or pull fresh updates down. So now it is my great pleasure to introduce Ms. Tracey Hammer of Prairie's Edge Casino Resort and let her speak a little bit why her and her team chose CSOI. Ms. Hammer?
I don't actually see that Tracey has joined yet, so we've been trying to get a hold of her, so just give us maybe a minute. If you want to move to the next part, then we can come back to Tracey's. That would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank
So
you.
the next part, I know I moved a little fast. We wanted to give time for Tracey and her team or Tracey to discuss why her team chose CSOI for Prairie's Edge Casinos Resort. The next portion of this would simply be us moving into a Q&A portion, which we're happy to get in front of and answer any of those questions that the audience might have around CSOI, the things discussed about the segmentation, microsegmentation, and protecting data sovereignty within your organization. So I'll pause right there for any questions.
See, I didn't see any listed in our chat, but I do have some questions that I came up with that I'd like to ask you. I kind of want to go back to your first topic, and I wanted to ask, how does CSOI prevent a compromise in something like a camera or a slot machine from impacting the rest of the casino?
Thanks, Kaylee. This is Robert Armstrong answering some of the questions for you here. The idea with the microsegmentation is that once the CSOI gateway is in front of that camera, the only thing that that camera can talk to is the network video recorder. So the assailant who maybe unhooked the camera and plugged their laptop into that Ethernet port can't see even the other cameras. They can't move laterally left and right, east, west through the network. The only thing they could assail was what is probably a fairly decently hardened network video recorder.
Awesome. I appreciate your insights on that. So how does CSOI handle legacy or proprietary gaming systems that can't be modified?
Well, much like that camera, we would use a small form factor physical gateway. It's a policy control and access point. It would go in between the network switch and the gaming system, and would allow the gaming system to maintain all of its same settings and configurations and IP addresses, but then the CSOI gateway would control where that traffic could be sent to reporting servers or audit servers, and prevent anyone from the outside from being able to scan that gaming server or gaming system so they can't look for vulnerabilities on legacy systems like that.
That's incredible. That's a really important tool to have. Another question that I'm seeing here for you. How is this different from just giving vendors VPN access with restrictions? Moving from your topic to.
Thanks. That's actually directly what Mr. Lemons was speaking about. When you use the CSOI agent, instead of granting you an IP address that's a member of a subnet pool on a VPN concentrator, it simply becomes a part of the identity-defined network, which doesn't have any permissions yet. It can't see anything else. And then specific permissions are granted to other members of that identity-defined network, allowing only these one-to-one connections. So where a VPN is typically bridge you on as if you're on the corporate network, CSOI is a bring you on exclusively to just the few limited resources you're allowed to have, and using advanced features, perhaps even only during the time windows you're allowed to be working.
Awesome. I do see here that I think we had a question come through in the chat. Let's see if I can find it. Michelle, did you see this question come through by chance?
Yep, I've got it right here. And they're asking, outside of casinos, are there any other use cases tribes could use this technology for?
Absolutely. One of the other use cases would be to secure things like a solar farm out on tribal lands, because one of the hardware packages we offer has a cellular modem. So we would guarantee encrypted backhaul of all of the data coming out of the cell site, or farming, a grow house for perhaps if you have a tobacco industry on property. And operations infrastructure is part of our name. So anything else like building controls, HVAC controls, this is suitable for anywhere you have something, especially legacy, that you need to protect and can't upgrade. If it's on a network, we can help you plumb that network back to where it needs to talk to without the people in the middle being able to snoop the traffic.
Awesome. Another question that just came in, does CSOI complement or compete, against native solutions such as HPE, Aruba's Edge Services platform that deliver, is it ZTNA?
Yeah, zero trust networking.
Okay.
We could either compete or complement. We do have competing features, but we also have a lot of complementing features.
Mhm.
Where like an Aruba Wireless gets you some of the security, you still need something where they can't see some of that online traffic. So a CSOI agent on the laptop on that wireless network provides a second in-tunnel level of security and encryption.
Okay. I just got a message from Tracey. She's on her way. Just had a time zone situation here, so she should be joining any minute. Another question that just came in the Q&A. Is this a software overlay to existing legacy networking infrastructure?
This is both hardware and software. So we have a small form factor devices, rack mount devices, as well as virtual switch and router devices, and agents to go on Windows, Mac, Linux, Android, and iOS.
Okay.
So the idea is to develop a software and identity-defined network for any device you might reasonably have speaking on your network.
Okay. Awesome.
And I will happily yield the floor to Tracey if she is ready.
Hi, Tracey. Thanks for being here today.
I am so sorry, you guys. It was on my Outlook calendar for 2 o'clock, and I just kept seeing 1 o'clock and going, yep, it's at 2.
Do you know what I just said? I was like, this is a classic case of time zone situation. So, but you're here, so thank you. We appreciate you being here to
Here.
share your story. Woohoo!
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So we did go over some information about CSOI, and we kind of came to the part where you're gonna, maybe walk through for everyone to understand what you did and what you guys did at the casino, and how, just your view on it and thoughts on it. So
Absolutely.
sweet.
So again, my apologies. I had planned to be here on time. So in the aftermath of an attack on our systems, my team had a lot of conversations about the situation. We came to realize we know what to do to minimize our risk of a breach or an incident. And unfortunately, we now know how to recover when it does happen. But how do we keep critical or primary systems functional during a breach? We met the CSOI team at TribalNet 2 years ago and started to learn about the product. And we really chose them because we could see it as a safety net in the event of a breach. And from the demonstrations they were showing, we could see the peace of mind it would provide us on our outdated equipment we have. At the time, we'd been already implementing segmentation into our network, and CSOI fit into that structure to add an extra layer of security. So when there is an intrusion, because we know it's if, not when, instead of them being able to navigate into our entire network and impact our systems, CSOI sees them and recognizes that it doesn't have the cryptographic signed identifier tying it to a trust relationship with the programs or the segments that they're trying to access. Instead, CSY stops them and isolates the device, minimizing the impact on our network and maximizing the functioning systems. Installation of CSOI was very simple for my team. We had some struggles in the start, but we found the support staff to be extremely helpful, and they continue to be wonderful in helping us find steps when we miss them and ensuring that everything's been done correctly and working the way we need it to. My team was able to install the agents using an invitation code, and that manages the installed agents and sets it into specified overlays. Trust relationships were set up with a predefined device group, or they do them manually, which is as simple as drawing a line between devices to give them that relationship. Our data is restricted to devices, trusted devices within the overlays, utilizing secure HIP tunnels for all traffic between the air walls. Discovery on the conductor allows us to add devices in a variety of ways, and we've set a rule so any new device discovered on a VLAN is set as a rogue device overlay where no network communication is disabled until we can identify the device and put it in the correct overlay. This also gives us peace of mind on outdated and unsupported equipment we still utilize due to legacy equipment. CSOI allows these devices to be used, but it enables us to virtually make them invisible to any user or program that doesn't have that signed identifier, allowing the trusted connection. Additionally, sorry, can't talk. We recently started maintaining the IT functions for our surveillance department. Previously, the IT was all done by the director who has no background or training and was relying heavily on vendors and third-party contractors. With CSOI, we can make surveillances programs and systems invisible to IT, except when we're scheduled to be there or if it's necessary for us to access them for diagnostics. And that keeps us within the regulatory and gaming requirements. The segmentation is very straightforward with CSOI. If we don't establish a trust relationship, no device can talk to another device. Also, if a device is under attack, we can disable network communications on the device or the entire overlay. When the surveillance director was doing his own IT, it was very cost prohibitive because of using all the contractors. And then also when we started using CSOI, we discovered potential issues within the infrastructure we were able to correct, which improved signal quality and reduced camera outages in that area. So overall, it's really been a benefit, and it gives us that peace of mind that we've been looking for so we can keep moving forward if and when there is an issue, and also to be able to have that surveillance system access when it's needed, but not when it isn't. And with that, I'll give it back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Tracey. As always, it's a pleasure having you on here, and I appreciate your kind words today. So we've visited a little bit on the Q&A. I know we've probably moved a little faster than advertised, but we'll pause here for just a few moments, see if there's any additional questions from the audience, and then maybe be able to give some time back to everyone today.
I don't see any additional questions. If anybody on the call though has some questions for Tracey, I'm sure she'd love to answer and help if you're in the same space or looking for some advice or anything like that. Now will be a great time. And again, if you don't want to put it in the chat, feel free to use the Q&A for that. What is the licensing model for the CSOI solution?
So the licensing model is based on seats on the conductor, and each seat is a cryptographically signed identity. So be that a gateway or an agent. We don't license based on the number of things behind one of our gateways. So if you have a 19-inch gateway or a gateway in your virtual solution, you can put several servers behind that, and that still counts as one license token against one gateway.
Okay.
And Chad, if you have questions about how we did that, Matt on my team, I think you met him at TribalNet. Nope, that was Joe. You'll meet him if you're at the Cybersecurity Summit. He has been my point person on the installation, so he is, he is a font of information of what we did.
Mm-hmm. And Tracey, just for everyone on the call, like how big is your team? Maybe like just to give everybody in the call just an understanding maybe of what you're working with.
Oh my goodness, counting me, we have 5 people.
Right.
That's it. And like I said, Matt was the point person. And Fred, yes, I am going to be at the Cybersecurity Summit, and Matt is also going to be there. Matt was the point person. He worked very closely with the CSOI team, and the other people on the team were just support to him. He did most of it himself.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And if
That's
I can
awesome.
speak to that, Tracey, CSOI does offer a boot camp training scenario or a solution to where any of those individuals that are interested in CSOI and we start this conversation and you decide, yes, this is what we need to get this in our organization. We understand that there's a lot to understand with a new cybersecurity solution such as CSOI. So we've created a boot camp option that will take any student from soup to nuts, the entire deployment from the software side as well as the physical side, because we want to teach y'all how to fish with this new solution. And we're here to support as that solution is implemented, as your organization grows. And as Tracey and team has found different ways to leverage the CSOI solution within their organization that may not be the primary reason that brought your interest to CSOI, to get the conversation started and to get those wheels moving. So the training options are there. We do provide it. We have headquarters here in Round Rock, Texas, and we would be able to assist, train, and then support your success moving forward.
Nice. We had a question coming from the Q&A that asked Tracey, can you share how easy the implementation was for CSOI?
I was actually just going to type a response, but I can talk.
Oh,
So
okay.
we did have a few hiccups on the start because the team missed a couple steps. And Matt did go to the boot camp, which he learned so much during. Once Matt worked with the CSOI team and found the steps that he had forgotten about, I believe it was a matter of a day or two that they had, and the team can correct me if that's wrong, that they had the base part running. They're constantly monitoring and editing trust relationships as systems move, as devices are changed, as we find something that can be tweaked. But it was really a very quick thing to get going and running in the system.
Yes, I concur, Tracey. After Matt attended our boot camp with us and we got him off the ground, got y'all back. You started operating through it, working through it. Our support side, we got the questions from Matt, and we're like, if you want to turn to this page in the training material we provided, this may remind you of those steps, because we know we throw a lot at the student during a CSOI boot camp scenario. And as soon as he saw that, he's like, oh yeah, thanks. And he instantly came back and said, okay, we're operational here. We're here. We're going to start rolling here. Just to give you guys a heads up, this is what we're going to be doing next. So go ahead and get me in front of what I might be forgetting. And we just help continue that relationship with Prairie's Edge. And it's been great working with you and Team Tracey all this time. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll say the CSOI team is one of the most supportive vendors I think I've ever worked with. The question in the Q&A of how do I sleep better knowing we use CSOI, we have some legacy devices that because of outdated equipment, we can't retire. And I jokingly, but in all seriousness, talk about the PTSD from when we did have a breach, that I literally have nightmares about it ever happening again. Knowing now that if someone gets into my system or when it happens, we've significantly reduced the chances of them making it away from one or two devices, depending on which overlay they hit. I don't worry about those outdated systems anymore as the way I did previously, because I know we've got them protected. They're hidden. And it is crazy. If I'm not on a machine that has a trust relationship with an outdated PC and I try and ping it, it doesn't exist. It's not there. That device is just gone. But it can still talk to the systems it has that trust relationship with on the programs it's designated to talk to. So it really, really does make me feel better.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
that's
Tracey.
great. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead, Michelle. I know there's one dangling question that I'll leave for Mr. Armstrong to answer.
Which one? Where am I looking at here?
The one from Chad Dixon, I believe. Will CSOI be attending the
Oh.
Cybersecurity Summit at our TribalNet?
Yes, we will be security at Cybersecurity Summit with TribalNet, and be happy to work with you on any questions you have. Do show and tell presentations, fire up a laptop and show you the command and control interface. However, we can help you understand our product better. Myself, I will be there along with Corey, my salesperson.
Thank you for answering that, Robert. I just wanted to check with you and Stephen and Tracey and make sure that have we talked about all of our talking points? Are we through with our presentation?
Kaylee, thank you so much. I believe we have that exhausted on our side, just level setting what CSOI is. We greatly welcome Tracey to the fold and speaking on Prairie's Edge behalf on how CSOI kind of secured those things that are keeping them up at night and how. So Tracey, thank you so much. We always appreciate your support. The last slide here is just we want to thank everybody for your time again. We do appreciate you staying buckled in through the turbulence as we got these things moving forward. We do ask that if you do want any additional information, or if you would like to see a live demo, we love scheduling 1-hour demos to where we walk through soup and nuts, different deployments, on-site, cloud, you name it. Please just visit us at csoi.us or contact us at csoi@csoi.us. And we've also listed our LinkedIn address for anyone interested in seeing. We keep our event schedule posted there, as well as any new blog entries. We like to do first on LinkedIn to get the word out as we duplicate on our website side. So Kaylee, from my side, I believe that's everything. Mr. Armstrong, do you concur? Over.
I do concur. Please follow us on LinkedIn so you can see what else we're doing and who else we're talking to.
Great. Thank you, Stephen, Robert, and Tracey for sharing your insights today. If anyone would like to get a hold of them, please reach out to us at tribalhub.com, and we'll make sure to keep you connected with them. Also, look out for the email tomorrow, and please share the webinar link with anyone on your team that may benefit from hearing this conversation. With that being said, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you all so much for joining with us and having patience while we troubleshoot some issues. I'm wishing you all a very productive rest of your day, and we'll catch you on the next webinar. Bye, everybody.
Bye.